All right, here we are again, doing a spooky snack. And in case you forgot or you're new, my name is Nash.
And I'm Tiff.
And spooky snacks are mini episodes of You Totally Made That Up. And instead of being researched stories, and I don't know where I'm going with that,
In depth.
in depth, we source these from listeners. So they're listener personal stories, or maybe they're stories from their families or their hometown, or it can also just be stuff that they want us to talk about. And we just kind of do the basics about those, we dig up the fun stuff about them basically and kind of hit the high points. And today's, man, it's a doozy. It is a real doozy. It's a fantastic listener story. But before we get started with all that, we need to talk about what has prompted so much response. And that is the owl pellet discussion that happened in the last full episode, in episode 11. But real fast, regarding the last mini-sode, the spooky snack about Mansfield Reformatory, the person who sent it in followed up, and we just have to share what she said. And Tiff's got this one.
Yes. So she says, we are Ohioans.
Okay, now look. I'm stopping you again. I have to say, I was kidding when I called you guys Ohioites or Ohiokins. I know you're Ohioans, but the joke didn't land because my partner here didn't really laugh. So, I can see how that might have sounded serious.
I was probably just like so focused, ready to hear what was happening.
It's fine. They don't all land.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool. Okay. So she says, we are Ohioans.
All right. So these Ohioites, here's what else she said. And Ohio is a strange state. We're getting that. FYI, in addition to ghost tours, Mansfield Reformatory also hosts Incarceration, like INK, a tattoo and music festival, so you can see some ghosts and get a bad tattoo while listening to washed up 90s alternative bands.
That is fantastic. And in my admittedly cursory research, I am sorry that I missed that. And I feel that we're better for this knowledge. I really do.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Let's all plan an outing.
How did that get tied to a prison? A tattoo and 90s alternative bands festival. I'm dying.
You gotta find something to do, I suppose.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you, listener, for that additional information. So back to the last full episode. This is another thing we have to tie up some loose ends on. It's called Lay Off the Beans. And if you've not listened to that, stop now. Go listen to, at minimum, if you don't have time to do the whole ep, look at the clip that I used for Instagram and Twitter and Tumblr and whatnot, which those are in the description somewhere. Or actually, we're doing this new thing. If you wait till the end of the episode after we say goodbye, there's going to be this little blip where we go over where we are online and how to contact us and all that good stuff. So if it's not clear in the description, it should be, but if it's not, just wait till after we say goodbye and you'll hear us read all that. Having said that, you need to listen to the clip because you need to know going in what prompted all this that we're about to tell you. And I mean, that clip paints enough of a picture, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I it definitely puts you in a very special moment.
Owls came up and a discussion got started. So here's what's not in the clip. I had basically said to the listeners, is my shock misplaced? Is this owl vomit dissection thing in most areas? And I just went to a shitty school. I mean, I did, but not all because of the science department. The reasons were deep and wide. But my shock was also because I think that this is needlessly gruesome. Just dissection in general nowadays is unnecessary in my view. And this seemed really extra. But beyond that this is considered an activity for children. Like, I didn't articulate a skeleton until undergrad, but on top of that, it was fake. Like, it was not an actual human skeleton. They didn't run out to the body farm and
Body farm. Mm-hmm.
We do. We have if not one of the premier body farm here in Tennessee. It's out at Knoxville. I digress. But
Fancy.
But the listeners, you guys, when I put out the call to say, set me straight if I'm wrong, you guys did not disappoint. So kick us off, Tiff.
Okay, I just had a moment upon seeing all of the replies where I totally was like that that clip from Brooklyn Nine-Nine where Captain Holt is like, vindication! I was like, yes.
I believed you. No, but I believed you. It just, the concept.
Oh, yeah. No, I know.
Anyway.
Yeah. So we did. We got lots of replies, and I'm so glad that I didn't go to a weird school where this is a thing that we did and no one else did. Yeah. So one person says, and their handle is Dinosaur Rainbow Starfish.
Love it.
4 exclamation points. So they're very excited. Okay. I had to do this too, and they promised they wouldn't smell bad, but they really did. And also, only like 1 or 2 kids were actually lucky enough to find a bone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I don't recall any smells, but I know that quite a few of us did find lots of little bones and fragments. So that's a bummer. You got some really crappy vomit.
That was my next question. Did you personally, do you recall getting at least a decent amount of a skeleton together?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there was even like a skull in mine.
See, I'm not saying this because I'm grossed out. I'm trying to put myself in Little Nash's shoes. And Little Nash would have said, whoa.
Yeah, no, it was like a thing. It was, but it wasn't, I don't know if you're
I looked it up. It looks like kind of a kiwi, bigger, but like just this fuzzy round pouch, right?
Yeah, it was, and all it was just like fur and like the bones, and it was kind of gritty. I mean, it wasn't like we were given intestines and like, here, find this. It was already there. And I know, like, around here, I know going on, like, nature walks, and I have this trail that I walk every day on my lunch break, and, like, they're just there. It's not much different than if you're walking around, like, if you're walking by prairie and you see, like, a dead mouse that's half eaten by ants and whatever. It's just all of the other gross, gooey stuff is already gone. It's just the bones.
Well, ain't that nice of the owl?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Thank you, Mr.
Owl.
Owl.
And I also have to compliment Dinosaur Rainbow Starfish on their name. For me, it's right up there with Polychrome Fairy Dog, which is another thing from that episode. And hey, listeners, again, if one of you is artsy, a rendering of such will make me incredibly happy. And, it's all about me.
It's a tattoo idea.
I'm incredibly humble.
For incarceration.
You
can do it.
See, love it. Okay, take a Polychrome Fairy Dog image and get it done at incarceration. All right, Donnie says, I can confirm this is indeed totally a thing, at least in California. When I was in first grade, now I have to stop. First grade, everybody. For the rest of the world, in the United States, you're about 6 years old, possibly a touch in a 7-year-old territory. But for the most part, you are 6 years old. And I don't know that I would want my 6-year-old doing this. And that's just my opinion. I'm not judging. It's a bit young for me to think of them dicking around with a skeleton. That's all I'm saying. All right, but back to Donnie. They merged my class with my sister's 6th grade class for the afternoon to do the assignment. It was oddly fun putting the, quote, puzzle back together until I understood with absolute certainty what I had been digging through. It was puke, Donnie.
No, that's terrible. Donnie. That's terrible.
All right, next one. Smee says, and I happen to know this person. That's my nickname for them. They are not, in fact, named after the pirate in Peter Pan, just to be clear. Smee says, yes, owl pellet dissection is very common here in the Buckeye State. I remember doing it well before we got to frogs and fetal pigs in high school biology. I am again going to stop here. This, fetal pigs. Now, I personally, again, I'm not grossed out by stuff like this as an adult, but why are we putting high schoolers through this? Don't they have enough shit on their plates, frankly? And it was before lunch period for some of them that they're going to cut open a pig.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Smee continues, and it's not wet, I guess. Anyway, I suppose it does seem odd, but it's actually very cool. And most of the pellets do contain a full mouse skeleton, or maybe I'm just nerdy like that. And wait for it.
Yes.
Wait for it. Especially since I named the cat I dissected in college. His name was Blue because when they were injecting blue dye into his veins, one burst in his abdominal cavity, and I spent an entire lab period picking blue latex dye off of his little cat organs. But I digress. Another great episode in the books, ladies. Can't wait to see what you have in store for Halloween next month.
Oh boy.
It's not blue cats.
How are we gonna beat?
I don't know. We're gonna beat it though. We're gonna beat this. We got, again, you guys. I cannot say enough. And finally, the last one, and this one was directed specifically at Tiff. So
Yeah. So I'll read this one. So Chris says, Jesus, Tiff, how many owls do you have in Wisconsin? When I was a kid, owl pellet dissection was something usually only seen on kids' nature shows. If you were really lucky, you might have a teacher or the equivalent of a park ranger demonstrate on a school trip instead of pond dipping. All right, so let's start from the top on this one. How many owls do you have in Wisconsin? I did look this up.
I did not.
Did you? I did. I looked this up because I was thinking, and I'm like, is that weird? Is it weird that we have owls? Like, they're just a thing. Like, people, I almost hit one with my car one day. They're just around. And I did look it up, and we actually have like 11 owl species throughout the state of Wisconsin. But when I actually did the owl pellet dissection, I was in Chicago, which is where I grew up. And so then I'm like, well, what about Illinois? So I looked up Illinois, and there are like 10 owl species that live throughout Illinois. So we got owls. We got owls. And like I said, like you can just kind of go on a walk through a prairie and you can find an owl pellet if you're actually looking for it. So they're around. Like if you need owl pellets, let me know. I'll go find some for you, I guess. I'll send them your way, Chris.
And I have to back up. She made the statement. I happen to have her note in front of me as well. She said if you were you might have somebody demonstrate one on a school trip instead of pond dipping. And to that I respond, the fuck is pond dipping? Now, we happen to know that Chris is in the UK, and if there can be further elaboration from Chris or from anyone else in the UK, I have a feeling this might be a regional thing. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but listen, now I'm decently well read, I think, and I have no fracking idea what pond dipping is. Is that like sample collecting? And, you look at the microbes under the microscope, or perhaps are children dipped in ponds to see what diseases or infections they develop as the semester goes on? That'd be a good movie, actually.
They put them in bogs, okay, so they could become bog people.
Man, I love Europe. In any event, I would like to know what pond dipping is. See, this podcast, I feel like we're educating on so many very important things that are going to be totally useless to everyone throughout the course of their life.
The amazing things you can find in owl vomit. The amazing things that you find when you get dipped in.
And what happens when you foul up injecting blue dye into a cat corpse and pond dipping.
A teenager has to cut into it. Yeah.
I'm stuck on pond dipping. All right. But now, everyone, here's your actual spooky snack. Here's what a listener sent in, and I'm gonna let Tiff read this and just see what you think. Just see if you have the same reaction that we did.
Okay, here we go. When I was 15, we moved into a new house. It was a Georgian terrace, part of a former cotton mill. The loom ran the length of the terrace in what would be converted into the top 2 floors of the houses. The ground floor had rooms where I believe some of the fabric was sold, and some of the families that worked there would live in the cellars or the basements below. The former resident had been an elderly woman who lived alone, and her family sold the house after she died from what appeared to be natural causes. My room was in the cellar, and I need to jump in on this because I would just immediately say, no, thank you. No.
Just a hard no. I feel you.
All right. So my room was in the cellar. I don't have any pictures of the house to hand, unfortunately. The best I can do is a charcoal sketch made from the top of the cellar stairs. It has held up pretty well considering it's over 20 years old and I only used a little of the cheapest hairspray I could find as a fixative. My room was behind the door at the bottom.
And by the way, we have the sketch. So that's going to go up on Instagram, maybe Twitter, maybe Tumblr, maybe all three, definitely Instagram. But anyway, you're going to get to see the sketch is my point.
Yes. And it does. It makes everything a lot clearer, and it is well done by this artist, and I'm so glad that that cheap hairspray has held up. Anyway, a couple of weeks after moving in, I noticed a tiny glass jar on a small shelf that was just above the dodgy and unnecessary lino with the flower pattern on the right of the pick. It was about 3 centimeters in diameter and about 6 centimeters tall with a metal lid, full to the brim with a clear, colorless liquid, which I can only presume was alcohol or formaldehyde, and it contained a fetus. I was both freaked out and fascinated. The only specimen jars I had ever seen were hidden in the back of my high school biology lab and contained snakes and tapeworms. What?
I
Okay,
know.
sorry.
I know.
Yeah, that sounds like a really interesting bio lab.
Oh, you would.
But
You would.
okay. Now, this looked relatively new, kind of amateurish in comparison. It was in remarkably good condition, though, intact and translucent, with developing bones, including the skull, showing through the skin. I am not a biologist. I can't tell you what kind of fetus, other than it was definitely a mammal. From what I've seen from documentaries and photos, there's a stage of development where all mammals, from humans to dolphins, look pretty much identical. And that is what it looked like. Large head, small body, and little nub-like limbs. To this day, I have no idea what species it was or why on earth it was there. We did consider having it identified, but never got around to it. To be honest, I think the morbid curiosity was drowned out by no one really wanting to know exactly what it was or why it was there. So we just left it on the shelf where I found it. Then we kind of got distracted by nearly dying from carbon monoxide poisoning and forgot about it.
I'm sorry.
It was still on the shelf when we moved out. By the way, my mother was convinced that house was haunted for a while. The walls were stone and brick, so you could make as much noise as you wanted, and unless the windows were open, it wouldn't bother anyone. Mom bought a cheap second-hand piano at an auction shortly after moving in, the tall stand-up kind, and put it in the front room. None of us could play a note. Anyway, she kept hearing piano music late at night and was shitting her pants until she got chatting to the woman next door at the pub. It was her playing piano, thinking no one could hear. For some reason, piano music carried when nothing else did, including my kid brother blasting shit music in his room at all hours.
That's it.
That's your listener story.
Oh, okay. There's a lot here. Here's my knee jerk though. Here, all I can muster up at this point is you had a what in your where?
Yeah.
Just a fetus in the basement.
Yeah. Hey, Mom, I found this weird jar. Just leave it.
We're not going to discuss this. Tell your brother to go turn down his music. And let's listen to the ghost piano. Oh, and do you feel loopy? I suspect we're getting poisoned by carbon monoxide.
Right. Oh, wow. Did you ever watch the first season of American Horror Story?
I did.
Did that totally,
Well, it's been a while.
that was all I could imagine. Was that crazy? Okay, so in the basement there, because the doctor that, lived in the house in the 20s was doing, backdoor abortions. And so the basement had, all the parts, and that was where he made, the weird, gross...
Oh, yeah, and it crawled around real fast? Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, no room in the cellar.
So if it was decently large, or she wouldn't have been able to see it clearly enough. So it's not like it was, you know what I mean? Not 6 weeks long where they're just a bean. So it had to have been,
right.
I don't know, pig maybe? Hell.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Hell.
Yeah, I would have stopped exploring. I would have been like, okay, let's Make sure everything is turned exactly the right way. I'm not
And
disturbing
she had to
this.
stay down there, though. That's the thing. That was her bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
God almighty. And the sketch, it's got, I mean, it's like, y'all will see it. The paper itself is light colored. I don't know if that's just age or if it was, you know what I mean? If it was like a cream colored or off white colored paper to begin with. But so it doesn't at first blush, I guess, seem creepy until you start looking at it and you see like she even drew like knots in the wood and stuff like that. So, and it leads, to this
Mm-hmm.
dark doorway that's casting a shadow, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just above that on the stairs, if you just look up as you're going down, oh,
Oh,
there's the fetus jar.
fetus.
There you are. Yeah.
Well, haven't we all been there though? Stumbling across a fetus
Oh,
in your
yeah.
house. All right, kids, that's it. That's your spooky snack and your update on Owlgate and the update on what you can do if you go to Mansfield Prison. And I think we're done. That's loaded. That's a loaded spooky snack.
It is. It is. Well, I hope that filled you guys up. Ba-dunch.
I'm cutting her off now. All right, bye.